Hi, everybody. Welcome back to In the Cards and Stars. I'm your host, Britt Madrid Mogensen. And in this episode, we are talking about the timing of transits and how you can plan a comeback in your life based on your birth chart and based on what's going on in the stars. I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but we're going to be looking at some celebrity birth charts and some people who have had major cosmic comebacks and astro flops in 2024. So we're going to pull up the birth charts of Katy Perry, Christina Aguilera, Lindsay Lohan, and an event chart for the Victoria's Secret fashion show, which came back October 15th after a 6-year hiatus. So we have a lot of interesting astro investigations to get into, so let's get going. When we talk about the astrology of timing and cycles in our lives, we want to look at some pretty big major players, some big planets. Disclaimer, there are many different planets that affect us all on a personal level when they're transiting different places in our chart. But for the purposes of this podcast episode, and just for entertainment purposes only, another disclaimer, I want to talk about planets that I think have influenced these celebrities and planets that I personally like to work with when I'm trying to time something, like a big launch or a relaunch. Those are Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. And here's why. Jupiter expands everything that it touches. Jupiter is all about optimism, fun. Jupiter wants you to lighten up and be open to possibilities and start to have fun in that part of your life that it's transiting. So if it's your first house, then you are going to feel like you are, as a person, is getting a boost, and other people are starting to appreciate it as well because you start to appreciate yourself more. It is just expanding your first house of self, who you are. You get bigger, brighter, and you just have a little bit more fun. Saturn governs time, the timing of things. So in general, already, Saturn is important. Saturn rules maturity, and wherever Saturn is transiting in your birth chart, you are maturing in this area of life. And if you want to make a big comeback, or if like Lindsay Lohan, you had periods in the past where you felt like you weren't seen in your best light. You know, Lindsay Lohan in the very early 2000s, Mean Girls era, and the first ever Freaky Friday, she was like the darling of Hollywood. I mean, I remember when I was in college, you know, my friends and I, we were just huge fans of Lindsay Lohan. We watched everything that she did. That was back when like we would all get like the physical, like In Touch Weekly, Us Weekly. And I remember looking at like her outfits and wanting to dress like her. And right around that time period, after she got really famous, she started to have issues with substance abuse. And we now know that she had a really rough home life. And there were things that went on in her life that were difficult for her. And I think fame just blows everything up in your life, makes it bigger. So if you have issues, I think it can be even harder to cope with them because fame, I think, provides like an escape, you know, from things that maybe it's better to deal with. So we saw her go through that. And now Saturn is making some really big, important transits in her birth chart, and we see that she's come back on the scene, a more mature version of herself that we are all accepting. So if the comeback that someone's making is about getting your life together, like Saturn transits are where it's at. It's also a place where you can level up. So let's say Saturn is transiting your second house of money right now. You are having to mature in the way that you look at your money, your finances. And in doing so, it may feel a little bit boring or blah or difficult, but you'll start to realize that you're understanding and learning the missing piece to your wealth and abundance. So whereas Jupiter is kind of like, we're going to sprinkle on some fun and optimism, Saturn is like, I'm going to give you the tools to finally overcome certain challenges that have held you back in the past, which is why when we have our Saturn return, which happens for everyone for about 2.5 or so years, and this happens right around the age of like 27, we hear that in like pop astrology, it has a really bad reputation for being a difficult time, for being a time where we're kind of struggling in some area of our lives. And it's because this is when we are forced to really move from who we've been developing ourselves to be as a young adult into who we want to be, you know, into middle age and beyond. And this is a really big milestone in our birth charts, in our lives. And so that's why it gets kind of a bad rap. But if you look at how people emerge from their Saturn return, when they take those lessons seriously and they don't fight those life lessons, we see that they emerge a much more self-actualized version of themselves. And it's actually extremely positive. And I actually like it. I like Saturn. I think that Saturn gets a lot more hate than it deserves. And if we really slow down and look at what we've gained from our Saturn return, I actually think it's something to embrace and not to fear. But if you don't know that it's coming, I could see why you might be kind of like disappointed, because it does slow down wherever it's transiting so that we can work a little bit harder in that area. It's trying to help us though. We're maturing. Okay. And then last but not least, oh my Lord, the one that moves the slowest, Pluto, which takes about 20 years to transit a sign. And the reason that Pluto is so important in the timing of astrology is because Pluto is one of the outer planets, meaning that it affects all of us on a personal level, yes, but it also affects pop culture and what we as a collective are looking at, what's popular, what we're interested in, kind of like the overtone of our collective experience. And right before, so hold on, let me back up. So Pluto entered into Capricorn, the zodiac sign associated with wealth, power, and power imbalances, and abuses of power, money, and power trickling down from the top to the bottom. So there being people who are in power, and then there being people who are having to listen to or work for those in power. It's like, the elite structure. Victoria's Secret is a big one that we're going to talk about when it comes to a Pluto transit, because I think that this speaks to what collectively has been going on during the Me Too movement. Pluto was still transiting Capricorn. Capricorn is also associated with, money and hard work. And sometimes, on the negative side, as well as power imbalances, it can also speak to, Capricorn can also be about putting too much importance on money, putting too much importance on status, and how we as human beings, we don't feel fulfilled by that. But we have to experience it for ourselves, right? So for a long time in the early 2000s, I certainly noticed that what was put on a pedestal was money and power and presenting a certain image, looking a certain way. And, we saw that really be destructive for a lot of people. And I'm sure we all felt it in our own lives as well. So Pluto is really big when it comes to not just our own lives, like I said, but with what is popular and with what we're learning as a group, as a society. And on that note, Pluto is making its very last, and I talk about this all the time because it's just been so wild how we've really seen it play out. Pluto's been making its last loop through Capricorn. It did enter into Aquarius for a very short period of time last year from March 23rd, 2023. But then it retrograded back into Capricorn, and it's going to be there until November 19th, 2024, when it finally moves on into Aquarius for the long haul 20-year cycle. And this is going to really be like a rebirth of our culture, what's popular, what becomes just the new set of lessons and themes that we're paying attention to. And that's all about the collective. It's all about, what we've been kind of pushing towards at the very end of Pluto and Capricorn the last couple of years, body positivity, starting to change our focus and wanting like the underdog to succeed and holding people accountable. That has all been moving us towards Pluto and Aquarius. It doesn't happen in like one swoop. Also, Diddy's a Capricorn rising. And during this, it's crazy. During Pluto's retrograde back through Capricorn, that was when he was finally indicted. And during this last little period, we're seeing that is what's happening, that he's finally getting his comeuppance. So right now, up until November 19th, 2023, we are seeing anybody who has misused their power kind of having to face the music, and that's not for everybody. Some people who were given this power or this opportunity to rise to the top with Pluto making an important aspect to one of their natal planets, or maybe their 10th house or midheaven. These people, if they have done, if they have been moral, if they have been good, if they have cared about others as well as themselves, if they have learned the lessons in a positive way, on the higher vibration of the transit, then we're seeing them get their positive karma, their blessings, their gifts, all the good things that they deserve for working so hard for the past 20 years. So just do a little check on your birth chart. Which of your houses is ruled by Capricorn? Which is ruled by Aquarius? You're going to see a really big shift from focusing on the Capricorn part of your life into focusing on the Aquarius part of your life. And wherever Pluto is, if you have any placements that have to do with making a comeback. So if you want to make a comeback in your finances, Pluto transiting your second house would be helpful for that. If you want to make a comeback in your career, 10th house, in your image and how you present yourself, first house. So if any of those houses or fifth house, creativity, if any of those houses in your birth chart are ruled by Aquarius, just know you're about to have a major opportunity for a big comeback and to be aligned with what's popular. That's more for fame aspects. So if we just pull up Christina Aguilera's birth chart, like I was looking at, the one thing that immediately sticks out to me is Aquarius ascendant. So with Aquarius ruling her first house of self, I would venture to say, and I don't know the timing exactly of when this happened in her life, but I wonder if she started her physical transformation around March of 2023, March of last year, when Pluto first entered Aquarius, because that was a time where she got the opportunity to make a big change. Pluto rules transformation. It rules these big changes in our lives. It's also associated with Scorpio, the Phoenix rising. So if there were things that she wanted to change about herself, we see now that she was able to do that. So her first house, ruled by Aquarius, also means that her 12th house is ruled by Capricorn. So while Pluto was in Capricorn, the last 20 years, this was giving her more of a focus on behind the scenes, because Pluto is really just helping you work through certain things. So I feel like she probably went through some mental things like mental health. She may have gone through some major transformations when it comes to her creativity, self-acceptance. Pluto transiting your 12th house, so all my Aquarius risings out there, and I'm included in that, we have been, for the past literally 20 years, oh my Lord, we have been working on everything underneath the surface, the way that we feel, our subconscious patterns, identifying things that we want to change, any self-defeating beliefs, it was like a mental health glow up transit. So we were really working on ourselves. And now that Pluto is entering into Aquarius, this is a time to come out of the shadows and share what you've learned, be yourself, a more aligned version of who you're meant to be. It's kind of like just stepping into the spotlight. So I totally see that for her, and that makes a lot of sense. If we look at let's look at some other things. What else is going on for Christina? Okay, so her 12th house healing journey is coming to a close as of November 19th, and all my Aquarius risings who are in the same boat, I know that we're all pretty happy about that. And if you do have Pisces rising and you're next, don't worry, you guys are probably going to do even better with it because Pisces is associated with the 12th house. So you may find that you're finally in your element. It's different for every sign. So that's why I always give a disclaimer. Don't apply too much of this to your life. Make sure that you're being very specific to your zodiac sign. Some zodiac signs are much more comfortable in different parts of the chart. Aquarius is not super comfortable in the 12th house, in my humble opinion. Okay, because Aquarius wants to be innovating and new technology, and the 12th house is more about feelings and, air sign versus air versus water. It's a lot. Okay. Jupiter in Gemini. This is exciting. Christina Aguilera has her 5th house ruled by Gemini, and the 5th house is creativity, children. It's just performing. Basically, being a performer is very 5th house. It's inner child. It's what you just love to do. And she has a lot of quotes talking about how the way that she's approaching her career now is all about doing what she loves, having fun with it, not taking it too seriously. And I think that that is another reason that people are embracing her and that this comeback is working, because that is very in alignment with Pluto and Aquarius. Aquarius is not afraid to do its own thing. Aquarius does not need to be accepted by the crowd, which when it's really like that and when that is an authentic feeling that Aquarius has, people gravitate towards them. So I feel like she's living that. I feel like she's doing that. Maybe in the past that was hard for her. Maybe that's part of what she had to heal. And maybe that's why she had her Christina era. So I do think that this is a time where she is being more authentic. It seems like she is embracing who she really is. And I did find that quote. She talked about wanting to balance motherhood and how she isn't going to tour anytime soon because she loves being home with her kids. That is so authentic. That is so in alignment with what I think is going to be working over the next 20 years when Pluto enters into Aquarius in earnest. I think that people want to see celebrities who are actually people and not just like on this pedestal and only caring about Capricorn themes of money and power over everything else. I think it's more about the collective. And anyway, love to see it. Okay. Other things that are going on for her right now during this big comeback era. She has Saturn in her Pisces second house. So that is a big money transit, meaning she's working on the way that she makes her money. The way that she makes money is changing and shifting. And there is a more disciplined approach to finances. So this could just specifically mean that she is working differently now than she did in the past. And I think that that is totally backed up by what she said. With Pisces ruling the second house, that can be the type of person that does have to learn how to flow with their financial abundance and balance the need to make money with the other parts of their lives and their creativity. I think she's doing that. I think she's learned how to take that seriously. And I think the way that she's presenting herself now is something that makes that really obvious, which I love. Also, fun fact, the second house rules the structure of the face and jaw. And I'm not going to speculate too much on like what she's had done, but there have been several people around, the internet, around YouTube, who have speculated that Christina Aguilera may have had a little bit of like a mini facelift or a little bit of like a jaw, something going on with her jaw, her facial structure, a little rejuvenation, a neck lift. If so, that would make a lot of sense because Saturn rules structure and people will sometimes get either like a plastic surgery around the face and neck area or teeth. Second house also rules your teeth. It's like teeth, jaw, and like structure and bone structure of your face. So any sort of plastic surgery that affects those parts of your face could be indicated because Saturn infuses more structure there. And I do think that, that's a very major possibility. Another fun fact, I have Saturn ruling my second house and I'm doing Invisalign right now. I didn't plan it like that, but astrology in the wild moment. Saturn is there restructuring my teeth. So there you go. Crazy. You guys can't make this stuff up. Okay. Leo North Node purpose. Another thing that I noticed in her birth chart is that she has a Leo North Node, meaning that she is meant to be in the spotlight. She's meant to be famous. And I think that once Pluto enters into Aquarius, I do think that she is going to have a resurgence that stays for the long haul. I think she's going to be, solidified as that, that woman. And I think that because she has taken the time to learn the lessons. And when you have a North Node in Leo, like you're meant to be in the spotlight. Versus, let's talk about one of the comebacks that kind of flopped. Katy Perry has a Gemini ruled 8th house. And she has her Chiron, her wounded healer, in the 8th house. Jupiter has been in her 8th house. So for her, there's a little bit of a complication here because when Jupiter is conjunct your Chiron, you are having to heal wounds. Okay. And this is a place where it can feel very empowering and you can feel really good if you accept that this is your opportunity to heal those wounds, maybe things that you would prefer not to look at or think about. But if you choose to ignore that or you try to sidestep it, you're going to have to come face to face with it. This happening in her 8th house, this is about power, the underworld. The 8th house is very psychological. It's pretty intense. It's about transformation, actually, oddly enough. And needing to let go of one era of your life or one part of yourself so that you can evolve. People with Chiron in the 8th house may have trouble evolving. They may find that it's difficult to grow and change. And this blew my mind when I looked at her chart because one of the biggest criticisms of her album 143 was that not only did she work with a problematic producer from the past, Dr. Luke, she also didn't evolve her sound. Like we don't see her revealing more of herself than she did in the early 2000s. And people want to see that from her, especially with the rest of her birth chart being very Scorpionic. She has this theme that we all want to see her transform. And she could, I think, remain in the public eye if she was more open about the ways that she's transformed, how that all has come together for her. I think that people would embrace her. But there are some other things going on in her chart that I think make it a little bit difficult. So in addition to this Jupiter conjunct Chiron in her Gemini ruled 8th house, different things are just being kind of kicked up for her. So this amplifies your emotional sensitivity. She may have issues when it comes to like shared resources and finances. The 8th house being about personal power also has to do with contracts and marriages and marriage contracts. So the way that we share resources with others, the way that we define ourselves in relation to others. And if you're a famous person, it could also be the way that you define yourself in relation to your legacy. And I definitely think that that is something she's been going through. The reason I think that this is actually okay is because hopefully this is moving her towards that North Node, which is wanting to get her to focus more on her home and family life. Very interesting. It's just completely different from Christina Aguilera. And when we do embrace our North Node, as much as it feels foreign to us, we end up being really happy. So I wouldn't even look at this as like a negative thing, like her not being famous anymore. If she chose to not be famous anymore and spend more time with her home life and like family life, I think that she would actually be extremely happy. So it's different. We have to look at things in the context of like the individual and what makes someone happy. Not everybody wants to be famous. Look at Chapel Rome. Okay. Also, she has a Taurus ruled 7th house. This is about stability and craving stability in your romantic partnership. The 7th house is partnerships, but it also can be like business partnerships. So this is also associated with hanging on to things too long. With Dr. Luke, she got a lot of criticism for hanging on to Dr. Luke as her producer. And she even said it's because like he was the producer that helped me produce my hits. So I feel like the reason that her comeback is flopping is because she kind of missed the plot, fell into the negative side of that Taurus 7th house, where she's just kind of holding on to something that no longer works and maybe a business partner that no longer works. She's not evolving enough. Also, Uranus has been in Taurus, and Uranus in her 7th house can also indicate that she's had surprises associated with partners. So I don't think that she expected to get backlash for working with Dr. Luke. I think it was a surprise for her. Also, she's had Saturn transiting her 5th house of creativity. So her 5th house is ruled by Pisces in her natal chart, and Saturn is in Pisces right now and, has been throughout this whole comeback thing that she's been doing. Saturn in your house of creativity is about structure and seriousness. Creativity and structure can sometimes have some difficulty, flowing. It's just like, I don't know. I just feel like she is struggling to express her creativity in a way that other people will accept. And when you have Saturn transiting the 5th house, Pisces creativity, this can also indicate that there is a need to embrace your vulnerability and to open up more to your creativity, to your true feelings. It's about letting go of like control. And with all of the Scorpio placements that she also has, I think that control is a big theme for her. There could be things that Katy Perry has been working on, writing in her journal that maybe like the public would absolutely love, especially when Pluto enters into Aquarius. More real, more authentic. I think that she resists that and she's still trying to play into this image. And I just don't think it works. I don't think that people are interested in that. We want to see the real Katy. And there can be this coldness when you have Saturn transiting your 5th house. There's a coldness associated with creativity. And especially with Pisces there, the best thing for her would be to share more of her feelings, to show her softer side. But the more she resists that, the worse it gets. And I think that that's what we're seeing. I think that she's been given this opportunity with Saturn in her Pisces 5th house to restructure her creativity, to present herself in a new way from a place of authentic emotion. Pisces is all about unconditional love. And 143, the name of her album is like 143 is love. That's like what, people say like 143. And I think what is it, like, I love you or something. So like she's trying, she's like almost there, but she's not quite there. And maybe if we look behind the scenes, I don't know, let's pull a tarot card. Maybe she could have achieved this if she wouldn't have gone backwards. Like maybe Dr. Luke is part of the structure that is the old structure. Yeah, I don't know. So what happened with Katy Perry only getting so far with the Saturn and Pisces 143 restructuring of her creative, music and her album and her image? What stopped her from the restructuring? Why did she go backwards instead of, transforming? Five of Swords. Yep. Okay, guys. Other people behind the scenes, other ideas. I think this is about not owning your personal power. Sadly, I think that she let other people influence her too much. I think that it was people around her playing it safe and her doing that instead of embracing her authentic creativity. It's like a fear of being vulnerable, a fear of being rejected. Let's get a clarifier. Six of Pentacles, bringing gifts. Yeah, this is focusing on the wrong things. This is like, in this instance, I look at this as like gifts, maybe even like, I don't know, allegedly like bribery or people who are like wanting to be in the good graces of the wrong people. It's just not about that anymore. That's just not where we're going. I just keep going back to Pluto moving from Capricorn to Aquarius. It's like, it's just not about that anymore. And those old methods just don't work. So, okay, that's Katy Perry. I just want to quickly touch on Lindsay Lohan before we talk about the Victoria's Secret fashion show. Lindsay Lohan has been going through this time period where Saturn in Pisces has been conjunct her midheaven. And she also has Jupiter there in the 10th house, aka the midheaven. So Saturn has been restructuring her midheaven image and 10th house career, with Jupiter there expanding everything through hard work. And we see that Lindsay is successful right now because she's been doing the hard work. She has been restructuring. She has been changing the way that she presents herself. And she's talked a lot about motherhood, sobriety. We see that she looks really great. We sense the authenticity and who she is. She did that one like Hallmark movie. Like she's just very real. Like she went back to do what she loves. And I think we see her in a light where she was not too good for anything. I love it. Honestly, like it makes me so happy because I do think that she is getting a second chance to experience this in light of everything that she's learned and gone through and how she's grown in life. And we see that it's working. And she has done the work to restructure things. I think she has let go of vices and addictions. Pisces can be about addictions. So Pisces midheaven is like, if you have addictions, if you have self-undoing tendencies, like that will be shown to the world. And we did see that happen. With Saturn there now, she has truly undergone a transformation through hard work and discipline. And it's paying off for her. She also has Jupiter conjunct her Gemini ascendant. So when Jupiter is conjunct your ascendant, this is a time where it's like you start to really glow. These transits come through and then they're gone. So you have to make the most of them. Make sure that you know where Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto are transiting in your birth chart. Please, please, please. Okay. And leave a comment on this video if you want me to give you a little advice. Just tell me what's going on in your chart and I can give you some tips. So Jupiter conjunct her Gemini ascendant. This is her public image, her sense of self, just glowing. Everybody has been talking about how beautiful she looks. Everybody has been embracing her with open arms. And in addition to that, she has an Aries North Node. And right now, Aries is transiting the North Node. So she's having her nodal return. So she's truly stepping into her mature, idealized, or self-actualized sense of self. And we see that and it's working. So I love that. She's done the hard work. Okay. One honorable mention before we do the Victoria's Secret thing. Hold on. Adriana Lima, who got a lot of flack last year for, it was so mean. It was so terrible. People were talking about her face and she came on and she was really good natured. And she said like, I'm a mom of 3 kids. I'm tired. Like, this is how I look sometimes, basically like F off, right? And now we saw her at the Victoria's Secret fashion show and she's back in the spotlight and everybody is receiving her new look, who she is, how like her spotlight, like people are loving her again. And if we look at her birth chart, we actually see that her sun is in Gemini. So she has Jupiter conjunct her natal sun. And again, Jupiter conjunct your sun, expanding you, your sun, where you shine, how you sparkle, your ego. So I just thought that was funny and very appropriate. So you want to look for Jupiter conjunct your rising, your sun, or your midheaven. These are all great ways to like come back into the public. Now we're going to finish with a Victoria's Secret little look into the event chart, because I think it is really interesting, the timing of this comeback, if you will. And a lot of people have been talking about it online, wondering if this is finally going to stick. Is Victoria's Secret going to have a resurgence? And I actually have some advice for them. First advice, hire an astrologer, Victoria's Secret. Okay? Because they're struggling a little bit. And I think they're going to keep struggling if they don't make some major changes. Okay, if we look at the Victoria's Secret fashion show event chart, we see that the first ever show was August 1st, 1995 in the evening in New York City. That gives this a Leo sun with one energy, all about the self. I'm already like, okay, Pluto moving into Aquarius. Moon in Libra. Libra is associated with Venus. So truly the moon, the emotions, what's hidden beneath the surface, it's about beauty. Yep. Mercury and Venus, both in Leo, fame and more fame, the way that like the thought behind it, the look of it, it's all about, fire sign, fame, the spotlight. Mars in Libra, motivation, beauty. I mean, guys, like you can't make, like, honestly, this is so crazy. When I look at this birth chart, I'm like, if someone doesn't believe in astrology, like, come on, it is real. Jupiter in Sagittarius, expansion. And fun fact, the fashion show, Victoria's Secret fashion show, has occurred all over the world. There have been special shows in Shanghai and Paris, in Shanghai and France, all over the world. So definitely there is an international feel, and they have gotten in trouble for appropriating different cultures. For whatever reason, the Jupiter in Sagittarius, though, expands that desire to incorporate different cultures, whether it's well received or not. Saturn in Pisces. So the Victoria's Secret fashion show is having its Saturn return, restructuring, and reemerging into the spotlight. So the Victoria's Secret fashion show is trying. They're really trying. North Node in Scorpio there. So transformation. I think that the show is going to have to transform for it to work. That is the only way that it's going to last. And that is the destiny. And hopefully to transform the current thoughts around the show, and maybe the way that people look at themselves. It's all about, I think, stirring up the whole body image debate and creating transformation collectively. Chiron in Virgo, so wounded in the area of femininity and healing. Now, if you heal this part, you can have the wounded healer aspect where there is an opportunity to heal the Virgo energy, and that is basically by, lifting women up, healing the way that people look at things. The Chiron and Virgo combined with the North Node in Scorpio, there is so much opportunity to really kind of go back and say the old ways, the way that we used to do things, that is like not right, and really create some healing content. But it has to be authentic. It has to be authentic, especially with this new era. And the reason that I say that is because the ascendant of the Victoria's Secret fashion show, the rising sign energy, is Capricorn. Mic drop. Oh my gosh. So since 2008, Pluto was conjunct the ascendant of the Victoria's Secret fashion show, just like Diddy, like we talked about, and Ed Razek, and I believe, there may have been other people as well, but they were associated with like Jeffrey Epstein and all of that. It's all kind of rolled into the same thing in my mind of just like taking advantage of women and using power for basically for evil, to dominate other people, to harm people, to take advantage of people. And with the ascendant there, that, wow, when the show started, I mean, that was really baked into the motivation. So that's tough. There are so many elements here to look at. And when we look at like, how could this show be successful, and why was it received with such mixed reviews when it came back October 15th after a 6-year hiatus, I would say that has a lot to do with how it still feels a little bit false when it comes to the transformation and the Chiron in Virgo healing, the wound around feminine energy. I also talked about Cassie when I did the Diddy chart reading and how she's a Virgo sun. So Virgo and the Virgo energy when it comes to like healing, Virgo is the healer in the zodiac. Virgo is typically a very pure energy, like a pure heart, a pure soul. And so when someone takes advantage of Virgo, there is usually a karmic situation going on. That person is going to eventually get a comeuppance. And Virgo, part of their journey is embracing their strength as they heal others to also realize that they're important too. The victim becomes the victor eventually, like later in life. As things move forward, they begin to rise above and the tables do turn. Virgo does not stay down for long. So when we look at this birth chart, when we look at what's going on here, especially in light of Pluto moving into Aquarius, because Victoria's Secret has been such a part of like the pop culture landscape, and people do feel like it's the body positivity thing, like they just kind of put some models on the runway that have a little bit of a bigger size, and then the other people who were, I'm sorry, like they were not healthy, and that's all been exposed. What they were having to do to their bodies, the way that they were treating themselves. It's really sad that was such a part of our pop culture at one point. And I think we were all a victim to it at some time. I know my friends and I were thinking that was the ideal body type. But now it's like they put those people on the runway like Ashley Graham, Tyra Banks, and a lot of commentators, I actually didn't watch the show, I'll be honest with you guys, but a lot of commentators were saying that they put those women in more clothing. And there still isn't a lot of messaging other than like just diversity and body positivity. There really isn't messaging like healing the past or transforming or changing. And so when we look at the houses and the house placement, first house ruled by Capricorn, where Pluto has been since 2008, testing how they use their power. I would say that Victoria's Secret really failed in that department. I think that they use their power for negative. The people that worked there, the people, the way that they presented things, I think it was very damaging, very negative to both the models and also the people who were consuming that content. It created a really negative image. Also, Uranus and Neptune are in the first house. So Neptune is illusion. Definitely Victoria's Secret, the angels, all of that was in illusion. I feel like the truth of the matter is a lot uglier than that. If you look at any of the documentaries, you see that a lot was going on behind the scenes that was very damaging, specifically to the models involved who were taken advantage of in various ways and who were made to feel like they were never quite good enough and suffered physically, mentally, emotionally. Like it was a lot. Neptune is all about confusion and illusion. Also, it's about projecting an image onto someone or something. Neptune is it's creativity, but it can be an illusion, a smokescreen, which I think that's what the fashion show was. Also, Uranus is there. So surprise, shock. I think that Victoria's Secret, people were really shocked to learn all of the things, like everything that was exposed. I think people were shocked. It was not something that anyone thought was going to happen. I think Victoria's Secret had become so powerful, especially like mid 2000s. People really thought that like they couldn't come crashing down. And Uranus there showed that yes, they can. And so I think there was a lot of instability, and there has been a lot of instability for the brand since like the Me Too movement. Okay, then we look at the second house ruled by Aquarius. So Pluto is actually moving from the first house of self and how the self is presented and how, the self is defined and the image and the branding to the second house of finances and money and making money. And with Aquarius ruling the second house, I will go ahead and say that I think the only way for Victoria's Secret to be financially successful and to continue into this new era for the next 20 years is to adopt authentically Aquarian themes and ideals. What I would do, little branding advice, what I would do is I would hire like a psychologist and someone who is an expert in women's wellness, in body image, in female psychology, and just change the entire branding. I think that the fashion show needs to go away. And I think that Victoria's Secret needs to be more about being a hub for women. And I think that they also have to denounce the fashion show and things in the past. I just think they have to evolve like Katy Perry. They have to let go of what no longer works. If you hold on to it, it's not going to work. And I think that's why people weren't feeling it, because it was like they've changed a couple things, but it was still very much like the old Victoria's Secret fashion show. But then what they're doing now, it just seemed like they were playing to what they thought people wanted. And it didn't seem like it was coming from the top down. Like authentically, the brand was changed. It just seemed like, okay, well, we're going to put these other people in because it's more what the collective wants. So I think that the only way they could do this would be to really get serious, to rebrand, to look at what helps the people, to look at women, have a foundation that gives back and that supports women with like eating disorders and issues and education, to like help with things like that, to work on like self-worth. I think that incorporating that into the branding authentically, like really being a force for good and for positive mental health for women, I think that that is the only way to move on into the Pluto and Aquarius era, which, fun fact, Pluto and Aquarius also is a very real shift of taking the power from men, because Capricorn is typically associated with male energy, to women. And I'm going to actually put a link in the description of this episode, because there's an astrologer, Jessica Adams, who dives really deep into this, and it's so interesting. She goes throughout history and looks at where we had major shifts from kings who were in power to women who were in power, to women coming into roles of leadership, and different things that really did occur with a shift from Pluto to Aquarius. The timing is amazing, and it's history, so you can really see this playing out, which I love to see that. So I just think that it has to be real, it has to be authentic, and that's going to take a lot more than just choosing a different type of model. I think it's going to be more about caring about the collective, caring about women, and really trying to repair what has been damaged. And I think if they were to do that, and we could tell that it was authentic and real, and maybe even, creating bras and underwear that are functional for women, things that have to do with like how you can properly align your back, and like really like healing, Chiron and Virgo, healing women, helping physically, mentally, emotionally. If they did that, I think that they would be more powerful than ever. If they just try to repaint what they already have, I think it's going to fail. So, okay, that is my astrology of timing episode. I hope that you guys enjoy it. This may have been a two-parter, but I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I love you so much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting. I am so excited. I do have to let you guys know that we have hit a higher point on the charts than ever before. Just last week, in the Cards and Stars, in the entertainment news category, hit spot number 81 in Canada, which I'm so excited about. So thank you for your support. I just appreciate you guys so much. And I'm very excited about Pluto moving into Aquarius. I think it's time for a shift, time for a change. And we will just be going through it and watching it all together and seeing things change. So I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.